Today in Europe, a shadow squad of footballers is forming. These are players who might be playing for Paris Saint-Germain, but who were let go during the last decade. This group gets larger every year, and today is enormously valuable. So, here are 437 million euros worth of players that PSG allowed to get away. Now, some ground rules before we start. The qualifying condition is that a player has to have spent time in PSG's academy. Players who transferred, didn't get much game time and then subsequently left do not count. So players like Gonçalo Guedes and Lucas Digne aren't here. But there are many others who are. However, by including a player on this list, we aren't necessarily saying that the club should have retained the player. Elite clubs all have to make difficult decisions to balance their squad. In PSG's case, those decisions have simply resulted in the following list. Starting with the first player, Mike Maignan. Maignan is now at AC Milan and has become one of the best keepers in the world. Before Serie A though, and before becoming the natural heir to Hugo Lloris in the French national team, he spent 6 years at PSG, joining the club at the age of 13. He was sold to Lille for just £1 million in 2015 without ever making a Liga appearance. Adrien Rabiot made plenty of appearances, over 160 of them, in Liga and in the Champions League. But he ran his contract down and left on a free in 2019, when he was just 24. Rabiot had a troubled time at PSG and suffered disciplinary issues and suspensions. But now at Juventus, there's no question that the best years of his career have come away from Parc des Princes. And the same is true of Ferland Mendy. He spent 8 years at PSG as a boy, but would actually break into senior football with Le Havre. Lyon would sign him for a €5 million pittance in 2017 and then flip him to Real Madrid for the better part of €50 million 2 years later. And while PSG haven't won the Champions League, Mendy very much has done. He started the 2022 final against Liverpool that Real would win 1-0. New Aston Villa signing Moussa Diaby did make the first team at PSG, but only briefly. He played over 1,000 Liga minutes for the club in 2018-19, but was stuck behind Angel Di Maria, Neymar and Kylian Mbappe for a place in the forward three positions, and departed for Bayer Leverkusen for just €15 million the following summer. Kingsley Coman has spent almost his entire career away from France and Paris. He was in the PSG academy for almost a decade, but made just 3 league appearances before leaving on a free transfer in 2014 and moving to Juventus. He would later leave for Bayern Munich, where he too would win the Champions League, ironically beating PSG in the final. And Moussa Dembele's career didn't quite scale the same heights, or follow the same direction. He actually left PSG when he was 16, deciding to join Fulham's academy in 2012. He'd play in the Premier League, later joining Celtic in Scotland too, before returning to France and Lyon, where he would score semi-prolifically for 5 seasons before moving to Saudi Arabia. Timothy Weah made his PSG breakthrough the same season that Neymar arrived, in 2017-18. Ultimately, he would play just 6 times for the club before being loaned to Celtic and eventually sold to Lille in 2019 for just €10 million. He's now won more than 30 caps for the US men's national team, and in the summer of 2023, he signed for Juventus. Yacine Adli is also in Italy, but with Milan. The rangy, cultured playmaker joined PSG when he was 13, but he would play just 13 league minutes for the club before joining Bordeaux for €5 million in 2019. His best days are clearly yet to come, as are Arnaud Calamuendo's. He was just 10 when he joined PSG and was born in Paris, but he's another who would barely play for the senior team, and instead had to make his name out on loan during 2 seasons spent at Lens. Having proven that he could score goals at Liga level, he was then sold to Rennes for €20 million in 2022. In the summer of 2023, he also scored one of the goals of the tournament at the European Under-21 Championship and, still just 21 years of age, is one of the most highly touted young forwards in Europe. There are others, like Crystal Palace's Odsonne Edouard and Leicester City's Boubakary Soumaré, who were never likely to become first-team players at PSG, but have still had successful careers elsewhere. Matteo Guendouzi fits into the same category. He left the club at 14 and joined Lorient, and later Arsenal. After a profitable spell back in Liga, he joined Lazio in Serie A in the summer of 2023. And Jonathan Ikone is already in Italy. He's playing for Fiorentina, having been signed from Lille in 2022. He spent 8 years at PSG as a boy, but was sold for just €5 million when he was 20. And lastly, Christopher Nkunku, the most valuable player on this list. Nkunku has just moved to Chelsea in the Premier League, but he was born in the suburbs of Paris. He joined PSG in his early teens, really as a midfielder, and made nearly 80 appearances for the club. He would be sold for just €13 million to RB Leipzig in 2019 and would cap 4 highly successful years by being voted the Bundesliga's Player of the Season in 2022, and then finishing the 22-23 season as the division's top scorer. By any definition, Nkunku is now world-class and an asset that any team in Europe would want. If you like this video, please like and follow Tifo. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the post.